Hello, I'm Jessica Doyle, and I'm a senior attending Westfield High School in New Jersey. While many of our internal organs are incredibly complex, none are more fascinating than the human brain. For an organ that weighs just over a kilogram, it contains the most complicated network of cellular pathways in the entire body. With 86 billion neurons and 100 trillion synapses to carry the many chemical and electrical messages which dictate everything about us, it comes as no surprise that despite an entire field of study dedicated to just studying what the brain does, we're still not exactly sure what every part of it really does. However, with the evolution of technology, we're getting closer every day. Recently, there was a major step forward. In November of 2015, scientists at a hospital in Germany released the results of a study that they had performed on epileptic patients to try and determine the true properties of the amygdala. Using 12 electrodes, 900 neurons were carefully tracked to gauge the patient's reactions to 42 photos of people with different facial expressions. Now, based upon previous studies, what should have happened was the amygdala should have picked up every individual feature of the faces within the photos and used that in order to interpret the expression. However, what they actually found was that the amygdala only tracked the eyes in each of the photos, and used that to gauge what the true expression was. Even more interestingly, the neurons in the brains of the patients who had autism did not fire in response to eyes as they did with every other patient in the study. What they found instead was that the neurons in these patients fired in response to the mouths in each of the photos. So basically what this means is that the way that a healthy brain interprets the slightest eye movements is the same way that an autistic brain interprets expressions in the slightest mouth movements. So of course, as if a biologist or a neuroscientist's job couldn't get hard enough, these little changes in brain function need to be accounted for in order to eventually gather a full understanding of the human brain. Similar differences have been noted in other parts of the brain too. Thomas Insel of Caltech recognized that schizophrenic brains lack a lot of gray matter. Gray matter makes up a majority of the brain's general function, so any part of the brain that lacks this gray matter is going to act very differently from a regular brain. So the University of Stanford actually identified the parts of the brain that are missing this gray matter in schizophrenics, and that would be the right anterior insula and the dorsal anterior cingulate. Now, being as the insular cortex controls self-awareness of one's own being, as well as motor control, while the anterior cingulate cortex controls motivation and emotions, in this context, the psychosis, lack of motor control, and negative moods associated with schizophrenia have obvious causes. Thankfully, scientists are getting closer to understanding even the most abstract parts of the brain as technology continues to advance. Armed with neuron measuring machinery as well as MRIs and measurable genetic information, biologists and neuroscientists grow closer to understanding even the littlest aspects of brain function. Now, Thomas Insel said that it's a cruel trick of evolution that we have a brain that's not wired well enough to understand itself. Luckily, with the assistance of technology, one day we'll have more than enough information to let our brains know exactly how they work.